William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I welcome you to another Two Hats special of community events. Let's look in and see what's really happening.
Oh, so, sorry about that. Let me get this thing to do what I wanted to do. Okay. We're going to clear up some misconceptions about Section 8. The first one is Section 8 doesn't pay enough for rent, or they don't pay market rent. Right here is a table that they give us when we go to try to find an apartment. They tell us how much Section 8 pays. If you can see this right here, in the zip code I used to live in the 511 building, Section 8 pays $1,410 for a one-bedroom apartment. Okay, so $1,400. Okay, so let's go to the next misconception. There aren't any apartments available. Okay, let me see. I had this all set up until my computer didn't do what I wanted it to do. Let's go. I had pulled up on my other computer several apartment complexes that, hang on just a second. Now you can see what happens when your airline computers go out and you have to stand there. You just have to figure out, what am I going to do? And I can't get anywhere. And people that tell you that, oh, these computers, I don't want to use them. Nobody cares. They can't be hacked. This is what can happen. And this is just something simple. When the computer doesn't function, okay, or maybe something goes wrong and your car all of a sudden puts on brakes. And you got one of these fancy cars, nice car, everything, push button electronic. Then all of a sudden the computer issue comes up and you're stuck. Congressman, can I put you on the spot here? Are you familiar with payer source discrimination?
With payer source discrimination?
Right. Do you understand what we're talking about?
No, go ahead. I'm here to listen.
Okay. All right. What happens is I had a Section 8 voucher. And like I said before, my zip code that I was living in paid $1,400 a month. Every apartment complex I went to in that zip code said, yeah, we got we got an apartment. When do you want to move in? I said, do you take Section 8? They said, no. I'm saying, okay. So I go to the next one. So after I go to about 3 of them, I can't do that anymore. I have to call because I can't spend my time and resources going to apartments. And they don't, they're not taking Section 8. So this is causing a backlog. Okay, you got it. This is causing a backlog of people who have Section 8 vouchers and they can't find a place to stay because nobody will take the voucher. Hang on just a second. All right, let's try this again.
Lee and I just did a search of 75201. and there's not a single one-bedroom apartment in that zip code under $1,550.
That's not where you're correct. You see right here? What's that say? What's that say? Okay, you got me? So here's another one. Let's scroll on down here and see if we can find us another one here. Let's see. Okay, now I can get $1,400. You see what I'm saying? So that means I got $300 extra for utilities. Okay? So I didn't magically poof this up here, right? This is on the internet. Okay? Now let's go back to my PowerPoint. And let's see if I can get this thing to work like I wanted it to work in the beginning.
We're honored today to have here Congressman Mark Vesey with us. He wants to provide a few comments, and so while this is coming up, we'll go ahead and let the Congressman have a few moments to provide some comments.
I'm Mark Vesey. I'm the congressman for the 33rd Congressional District here in Dallas. The district that I represent starts just a little bit west of here, just on the other side of the bridge. So West Dallas, where they're obviously having the issue with the people that have been displaced, that owned, that were renting the 400 houses in that area. And that entire area, because of development and changes, demand for more urban property, is really going through a transformation, and we have to figure out a way how we're going to get on top of this situation. When you look at so many cities around the country, and you always hear stories about, like where I live in Washington D.C., where I live in Fort Worth, but I have an apartment in Washington D.C. when I'm going up there to vote. My apartment in the Navy Yard is 726 square feet. I pay $2,200 a month. And more of DC is becoming that way. We've already seen it in other cities, Los Angeles, New York, San Francisco, and here in Texas, of course, probably the first city where we started to really see just urban rentals and home prices really just start to go off the charts is probably Austin. When I was in the state legislature for the 8 years that I served there, you could see the prices starting to creep up there, and now it's very, very expensive if to live in the city of Irving. And so I hope that Dallas can work together with housing advocates, with coalitions like the one today, to be able to try and get ahead of this issue, because more and more people are going to want to start moving to Dallas. There is going to continue to be demand on properties, demand for rental properties, and we need to try to figure out some sort of way where people can still live in the city and live in the city affordably, and have some discretionary income, be able to have some savings, be able to afford insurance, be able to do all of those things that make it easier for people to be able to live and contribute to society, and be able to prosper. So I have a meeting at my office in Oak Cliff at 11 o'clock, and so I apologize that I have to run out a little bit early, but just want to thank everybody for being here and caring about this issue, because it is a big issue, and it's going to be an issue that, quite frankly, we're not going to solve it in 1 or 2 years. It's really going to be something that we're going to have to continue to address for the long term, or as long as we have prosperity and people continue to move here to the Metroplex. It's one of the fastest growing areas in the entire country, and we have to figure out how to get a hold of this. So thank you very much for letting me have a few words, and good luck on the day's meeting. If you have any questions or if I can be of assistance, please call my office. We're just right down the street here off of Sylvan and Fort Worth Avenue in the Chase Bank building. And anytime you're having any sort of issues with any of our federal agencies that deal with housing, like HUD, call our office. There are some HUD officials that are here today. We invited them to the meeting, and they're going to be available to answer any questions that you may have. And but you should definitely utilize them as a source. But like I said, if you are having some trouble, a lot of times if you live in the district that I represent, we can cut through a lot of the red tape at the congressional office with our caseworkers. So thank you very much.
All right, Congressman. Okay, I wanted to mention this. I was listening at the city council voted in an ordinance that actually didn't do anything to protect the majority of people on Section 8. And they voted to protect people who were disabled or veterans. So that leaves about 70% of the people who are on Section 8 unprotected. They can't find a place. So Councilman Clammon was saying, oh, landlords don't want Section 8 because they can't get their money on time. And landlords are paid 5 days after their paperwork is sent to DHA. They don't have to wait 30, 60, 90 days. See, these misconceptions are what landlords use as a rationale not to take Section 8 people. Okay, here's another misconception. In fact, a friend of mine that's a landlord says, oh, we got to lower our rent to take Section 8 people. But Section 8 will tell you if the rent is too high for what the Section 8 will pay in that zip code, you need to vote to another zip code. It's not complicated. So you can't use that as an excuse, or you can, but it's not accurate. There's another one. Oh, Section 8 people, all they want to do is smoke dope, sell dope, rob and steal, undesirable. We don't want you here in our apartment complexes. There's no data to verify that. Section 8 people are no different than anybody else who sells dope, smokes dope. If you're in there and nobody knows whether you're on Section 8 or not. You're just a hellraiser. Section 8 people didn't invent that. So that's another monkey that you put on your back. The landlord says, nah, you're on Section 8. Oh, something we don't like to discuss. We can't say the word race. We don't want to say that. However, if you're of that oppressed or that disenfranchised or that, not allowed in ethnic group, you have a problem. So if somebody deals you the race card, then you have to play it because that's what you got. Okay, so Section 8 recipients, quite a large amount of them are minorities, African American, Latino, and if you drill down into the data, it's kind of like a voter ID law. It just happens to target minorities. Well, when you're dealing with people that write these laws that are Harvard educated and, Stanford educated, it's kind of hard to believe they don't understand that what's going to happen. So the federal judges said, no, you can't do that. It's a part of a violation of the Fair Housing Act. Now I can't show this one because okay. So now, how do we solve this problem? Okay, the congressman, which I wish he could have stayed, this is what he was a part of. Supreme Court decision, overturned the voter ID law. And that's part of the reason I kind of asked him to come, because he's got experience dealing with these, slaying these Goliaths. And he's got the wherewithal to do it. Okay, now, that's a solution. Anybody got any ideas on what we need to do to try to get these landlords to accept these vouchers? Anybody in here? Okay. Don't be afraid now, not all at one time, as they say.
I can tell you what we're trying to do at City Square. We've reached out to a large church in Dallas who has a lot of landlords who go to that church, or there's a lot of members who know landlords at this church. And we've invited them to come to our place next week to talk to them about this very issue. And we don't expect any magic thing to happen overnight, but at least we want to start the conversation. And these are landlords that have, because we've worked through some folks at this church, have already told us that they want to be a part of the solution, that they want to be able to provide a small number of units at their properties where folks can use vouchers. And these are not properties that are typically in parts of the city where, you can only nowadays find an opportunity to use a voucher. These are some, maybe some higher, what we consider higher opportunity neighborhoods. So here's our challenge, and it's much, much bigger than one nonprofit or one church or even just our public entities, our city and county governments. It's big. It's so big that all of us have got to work on it together, and we got to work on it in a multiplicity of ways. Up until about 1998, you could just about get a tax credit project anywhere in Dallas you wanted to do one. Now, a tax credit project is where a developer approaches the state government and says, we want to place some affordable housing where up to 50% of the property is designated for people that have vouchers. And they could get from the state government a loan in the form of some tax credits. And they could take those tax credits and they could take them to businesses, primarily banks that deal in tax credit, and they could sell those tax credits and use that money then to go build properties for people that want to use, that have vouchers to use, as well as people who can pay market rate, and have a better mix of incomes in a property than what we have now in Dallas. But the challenge that we face in Dallas is that HUD and the Fair Housing Act working together have basically told us you can't build those properties any longer in the Dallas city limits. If you want to get tax credits from the state to go build those kind of mixed-use properties, they've got to be in your suburbs. And when we go to the suburbs, the city councils won't even let us in the door. They won't even consider it because they think it's going to drive down their property values. And so that's the bigger issue. The tax credit program won't let us build it in Dallas, and the suburbs won't let us build it there. So we're kind of a catch-22 situation. Our 15-story building downtown, City Walk, has 200 units where 200 people on vouchers all live together in the same building with some people that have some very expensive condominiums, and they all get along together just great. And they built a vertical neighborhood where everybody gets along just fine. And there's very few problems. Maybe 8 to 10 people a year have to be asked to leave the property because they can't be good neighbors. But there's always 50 homeless people that have come there on a voucher, and then there's 150 people just like Leon here who have, moved on with their lives and changed the trajectory of their lives and done well. And they all get along together. So anyway, Lee, I don't know if that helps get the conversation started.
Thank you very much. Okay, Siobhan says, tell what happened to me. When I was homeless, I came from Atlanta to get away from homelessness. There's about 100,000 people that are homeless in Atlanta, give or take a few thousand. And so in 2006, I said, I'm tired of this. And a lady that lived in Dallas said, why don't you come down here in Dallas? I can help you get into business and et cetera. So I said, anything beats sleeping in the park. So I came to Dallas, and things didn't work out with the lady who invited me here. And so I left Grand Prairie and then came back to Dallas. So I got a job. I'm not a corporate person, as you can see. When I lost that job, went to the shelter. That's when I met Larry, Ed's boss. City Square, CEO, actually comes out to the homeless area and interacts with the homeless people. He doesn't stay up on the 15th floor. As he was saying, it sends Ed down here to do it. Larry actually comes down there and talks to us, and he talked to me, and I told him what I was trying to do, and et cetera. So as time moved on, I eventually got an opportunity to move into the City Square building. And since I've done that, I've completed my associate degree. I completed my bachelor's degree. And now I'm in graduate school. Wow. And when I give people my card, they look at me and say, is this your card? Because there's and this is kind of like divergent, there's an assumption that a person from Asia or a person from India, they can do that IT stuff, but aren't you out of your league? Are you smart enough to do this? You look like you need to be, playing basketball, maybe, football. So people look at me like, what? And they finally, they try to figure it out. So I was able to do all that because Larry and Ed and his other people, they do what they do. So this stuff that they tell you about, oh, you homeless people, you all drug addicts and blah, blah. That's on an individual basis, just like some of the rich cats out there in the rich neighborhood. You go in their house, they got more money to buy more dope. Okay? People in the streets, we don't have any money. You know what I mean? So, goals and timetables. This is one of my favorite slides. Okay, we've talked about the problem. And what are we going to do about it? And when are we going to do it? Because they had mentioned something about not being able to build housing. Why did I do that? Here we go. How many of y'all know what Frontline is on PBS? Did you see Frontline yesterday, Tuesday? Yeah, that's what your next assignment is for the next time. You need to go and look at Frontline from today's Friday, from Tuesday. And they were talking about what it takes to build low-income housing. And guess where it was headquartered at? Good old Dallas. And they were talking about what the lady in McKinney was trying to do to build the housing. And we got plenty of land in Dallas to build housing. So we're supposed to lead the nation in solving this problem because we have the resources here. When you go to Atlanta, they don't have any room to do anything. They don't have any land. My church has 60 acres of blank land right next to it. Can't do anything. Okay, when you drive around Dallas, you see all kind of big patches of land where there's nothing there. They could build housing. But when you look at that Frontline, what do you call it, segment, episode? Excuse me. Hold on a second, let me get my lubricant out here. If I can find it. Oh, I know where it is. There we go. Yes, if you look at that Frontline episode, it was on this past Tuesday. Very, very timely. So you can see that not only will they not accept the vouchers when there's housing available, they won't let you build housing. So we have two issues that we have to tackle simultaneously, because even though people here probably have no concept of what it's like to be homeless, so I can get this up here. Can I go backwards? I've lost 2 or 3 people that I knew because they were homeless. They didn't have any place to go. They lived in the streets. One guy had cancer. He had lymphoma. And I didn't know how to handle that, because I don't know anything about, I'm an IT person. I'm not a medical person. Let's see if I can get this to work. And it's this lady who, if I can ever get this to pop up, we've been trying to figure out who murdered her for the last 2 years. She was homeless. And let's see, I don't know if I can get this to come down or not. Let's see. Bring that down. Bring this up. Let's see if this will work. Nah, it doesn't work like I want it to work. But at any rate, people, this is a life and death issue for some people. So we have to take it seriously, because a lot of the people who don't have the wherewithal to be able to interact with these government agencies and, these big banks and these developers, they don't know how to approach them. They're just trying to survive. And so if you've ever experienced homelessness, which I wish I could have showed you, because when you look at Frontline, you're going to see these 3 women. They all got vouchers. They're sleeping in the van. One lady's got 7 kids sleeping in the van. One lady's got a kid sleeping in her. One lady's getting evicted. When it starts off, this lady gets evicted. They're showing eviction. Oh, she's kicking her out. It's not just me. Some people say, oh, we don't want you. You just want something free. Well, I'm not just representing myself. I'm representing women with families. Like the congressman said, the people who are in West Dallas, 300 or so of them have to get out. Okay? If the landlords took the vouchers, you could just hand them a voucher, go find you an apartment. This is a serious issue. This should not be, homelessness should not be, especially in Dallas, because Dallas has the resources that they don't have in Atlanta, where they have 100,000 homeless. Okay, now does anybody else have anything to say? Anybody want to say anything? Why don't you come to the mic, see if it works. No, just off of
So I actually, and I apologize if everybody else understands this, but I don't, because I'm new to it. I'm assuming there's coalitions across the board, and that might be the place to drill down, it seems to. And so are they meeting with politicians from North Texas, mayors, city council people, real estate developers, the key pastors, City Square, the different folks who yield the power to say yay or nay to all this? And are they bringing them to the tables to sort of collectively move this forward? I would assume that effort's been done. So my second question would be, if so, then why hasn't it moved forward? Because that would be the place I think we have to kind of laser in and take a look at. But, I look at Commissioner Daniels, for instance, has it's a big name, Behavioral Health Housing Work Group, I believe it's called. And so they're meeting with individuals who work with behavioral health issues to address the housing needs. So they're moving forward slowly, but the providers, just get everybody around the table. So I don't know if that's been done. I'm assuming again so, because Dallas is pretty good at coalescing, but second question is why hasn't it done anything, and what do we need to do to address that?
Cindy, you got any comments?
No, I just know. Are there guests here? Don't we have some guests from HUD? And I apologize.
I hear you.
Yes, you do. Do you want to let's introduce them and put them at the front there, so we can kind of get a little deeper into the issues? And I'm glad you mentioned the Frontline special. That was quite enlightening, and all of us knew many of the stories. So who's here?
Go right ahead.
Yes. Introduce yourself. I don't have that. But Yvonne Moore can help that.
Anybody back here from HUD? Okay.
while they come, I wanted Mr. Holman to tell why he's doing this today, to kind of share with you guys his struggle with finding the voucher. And so he didn't go into the part of his story that I don't know why, but I'm going to tell it. Mr. Holman, like you said, he lives at 511 North Eckerd, and he received a Section 8, I'm sorry, got people are behind me. He received a Section 8 housing voucher to find a property, and he wanted to remain in around the downtown area because a lot of the things that he does is centered in downtown, just like most of our homeless clients. You know, that's kind of why they congregate here. All the services are here, et cetera, et cetera. So he received his voucher, and I believe for his zip code, it was $1,400.
That's correct.
He found an apartment. He called several apartments, got in touch with the guy who said, oh yeah, we have one that we're renting for $1,100, right? Come on over, see the property, let's, go from there. So he get there, he tells the guy, I have a voucher. Well, when he gets there, that's when the guy lets him know that he's not willing to work with him because he has the voucher. And so, of course that made him upset because you have a property that's $300 less than what the voucher is willing to pay, and you are refusing to rent to me because I have a voucher. And so that's kind of why we are here today. We want to bring awareness to everyone, to kind of put it out there that this is happening, and of course come up with some solutions as to what we can do to try and prevent this from happening in the future. So we have with us here today Leslie Braggs and her team directly from HUD, who will provide us with some insight on some of the things that are going on and what they can do.
Good morning. My name is Leslie Bradley. I work in the Office of Field Policy and Management at HUD, and I also, on the side, I also am the interim co-chair for our Regional Interagency Council on Homelessness. So I've not met Cindy in person, but I've heard her on the phone before. And one of the things that is your name Larry? You're with City Square? Ed. Okay. Okay. So what you said is spot on about landlord outreach, and also the lady over here. It's very important to do that outreach to landlords to address these misconceptions, and the more people that go out and do the landlord outreach, the better it will be, because they'll hear from all sources and not just at the first time when a tenant comes in and a potential tenant comes in and says, I've got a voucher, you've got some units available, will you at least take my application? And they say, no, we don't accept vouchers. But the more organizations that approach them and kind of break down those misconceptions, the better. And this is Thurman Miles with our Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity. He can maybe talk to you about the fair housing law and obviously how there are only certain protected classes, and payer source discrimination is not. But I'll let him talk in a minute. And then also Carrie Dobbins, she's from our Office of Public and Indian Housing. So they don't give the vouchers, but they do provide the money to the organizations. Yes. Yeah. So let me go ahead and give it to Thurman first. Okay.
Good morning. I'm with the Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity. We're sort of let me see if I can talk, because when we talk about HUD, everybody thinks that we all do the same thing. So we do different things. We have different departments. The Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity enforces the Fair Housing Act. We're sort of the enforcers of the law in housing. And this is a particularly topic that we're interested in because we're so limited in what we can do. The Fair Housing Act covers 7 protected classes, and they're race, color, sex, religion, disability, familial status, and national origin. When someone says they've been discriminated against because they have a voucher, that's not one of those protected bases. And so it puts us in a quandary because there's not a whole lot we can do. However, there's one little caveat, and that is we have a theory in fair housing called disparate impact. And so, disparate impact theory.
You might want to hold the mic slightly closer.
Okay,
There.
is that better? All right. Y'all can hear me? If not, I can walk around because I don't like to sit still.
If you hold it right here like this, it's automatic.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
All right, here we go. All right. So disparate impact is a theory that says that if you are a member of one of those protected groups that I mentioned, and someone has a policy that's considered to be neutral. So say I'm a landlord, and I say I have a policy that I don't take vouchers. I don't accept vouchers. That's a neutral policy in theory. However, if we look at who has the vouchers, there's a disproportionate number of people from a particular protected group, whether it's race, national origin, or what have you, familial status. Someone from that group could file a complaint based on disparate impact, saying it's having a disparate impact on me and my group, because of the representation that we have. That is an avenue that can be used and has been used. It's difficult to prove because you have to do it statistically, and you have to be able to make the numbers work. And depending on where it is, you may have a better shot at it than others. Somebody mentioned McKinney, Frisco, those areas. Depending on where it is, down here would be easier. So that's one aspect of it from our department standpoint. We don't have any money to give anybody, so we just try to make sure that the people who do get the money use it fairly. The other area that was mentioned in terms of tax credit properties and that sort of thing, that's another side of our department, because the Fair Housing Act covers all private housing providers as well as those who receive federal funds. But on the other side are those programs that just receive federal funds. So if they receive federal funds through one of our other departments, whether it's public and Indian housing, our public multi-family housing, where they do the FHA insurance for these properties and that sort of thing, then we get a say to make sure that they follow all civil rights related program requirements. And so when it comes to the placement and the siting of housing that receive federal funds, then we have some laws that come into play there. And I think he mentioned tax credit. If tax credits don't receive any federal funds, we have nothing to say about it. But many times there'll be some home funds in there. And if there are some home funds in there, that comes from HUD, it comes from our Department of Community Planning and Development, then we in Fair Housing do have some say on that. And so what I recommend in that area, and it's been said here already, more education, more reaching out to, say, the council person whose district that land is located in. You need their support. If you can get their support, then you'll get a long ways down the road for getting the support letter you need from the city council for that property. But if you don't do your groundwork, you don't do that, then the likelihood of getting it done is much less. And all these misconceptions that you mentioned earlier come into play. So the more education you can do of those entities and those individuals that you have to deal with, the better. So I can talk long, but I just wanted to give you an introduction. That's who we are, that's who I am, and I'm always available to try to direct people where they need to go within HUD if they have questions and that sort of thing. So I consider myself more of a resource in that regard than what we do directly. Okay.
I have a question. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding this clearly. Based on the Disparity Act, is that what we call it? What you call it? Disparate impact. Okay. Here, a couple of months ago, David, what were those numbers that said, when we did the race and homelessness? What kind of numbers did we have where we had a lot of African American people who were homeless? We had that hard conversation, and that's basically what it said, was that we have a lot of black people who are homeless. And I'm wondering my question is, since we have quite a few homeless people who are black, homeless, receiving the voucher in Dallas, if that would be reason to file under the disparate impact.
Okay, let me make sure you understand. Yes. Disparate impact is a theory of discrimination. What they would be filing up under would be their group, whether you said African American. So race is protected by the Fair Housing Act, And so therefore, a person of that group could file, or a group of people could file.
So we just have to prove that there are the number of African Americans receiving the voucher in our county is greater than other races. Is that what I'm hearing?
No,
Okay.
not exactly.
Go ahead and,
Okay.
Are they receiving a voucher and cannot lease up? Is that what you're
Correct.
saying?
That's correct.
I think that's what you're saying. The African Americans receiving the vouchers, but then they're not able to lease up because when they go for housing, we're told they don't accept vouchers. But then the thing is determining if they're accepting vouchers from others.
Right,
Okay.
because of race.
Yes.
Because sometimes we'll have a complaint like that, and we go to the complex, and it's 65% African American without taking the voucher. So if you have a case like that, you can't prove your case.
Okay.
So that's why I said it's a way to do it,
Right.
but it has to be kind of carefully considered, and that's where we come in. You can call us and talk to us, and we would give you the information to kind of see if you've got something. And then if it's something that we feel is a jurisdictional complaint that we can take, you don't have to prove it for us to take the complaint.
Right.
We just have to have enough that we can latch on to it, and then we have to determine that whatever happened, the refusal of the voucher was because of race or national origin or whatever it is. Okay?
I have so many questions. So,
Thank you. So a couple of things. One of the things since you're HUD and trying to, there was a lot of dialogue last year that said 1,200 people experiencing homelessness were walking around with vouchers who couldn't cash them in. And then I said, well, Dallas Housing Authorities, could you give me the list of those folks so I can target people to help well, the number really wasn't that big. I mean, there was 1,200 and there's homeless, capital H, homeless, but for, etc. So we got down to, they could not share the information with me as the continuum of care because they were Dallas Housing Authority. So one of the things that we're doing as a community in our new homeless management information system is I'm going to start asking my authorized referral agencies who serve homeless folks, when you write up that homeless preference application for a housing authority voucher, log in an HMIS. If the Dallas Housing Authority says you're accepted with a voucher under the homeless preference, I'm going to make mark of that. So now I know how many people are walking around with vouchers. And then if they get denied, we start logging that through our coordinated assessment system so that we can start getting the data. So my question is to you is, how can I get better information allowable to share with the housing authority on their data collection side with me? Because it's not they're saying I can't share that information with you, nor could they extract it in a nice slice and dice way so that I could really say, and prove that.
Good morning. I'm just going to remain seated if you don't mind. Carrie Dobbins, and I'm with the Office of Public Housing with HUD. And we do, in fact, oversee the administration. We provide the funding for the Section 8 voucher program, and we oversee the administration of that, make sure they're in compliance. And what you're saying is exactly correct. Is there anyone here from the Dallas Housing Authority? Did you guys fail to invite them?
No, I sent multiple.
Okay. Well, I just thought maybe I'd ask, but anyway.
No, I didn't feel invited. No.
That's a very, very sensitive issue of disclosing information, and we have to be very, very careful. Again, not to just say, call your congressperson. It's going to require some changes in policies. And unless you can develop some kind of relationship with the homeless individuals where they're willing to just kind of give up the information, we do restrict how this information is actually shared. And I would say that requires a policy change. I mean, there are systems that it's in, but we can't outright just give it out either.
And we do that, so I can share. We make sure within the continuum of care,
Right.
Dallas Housing Authority is right on there, Plano Housing Authority. We make
Right.
sure that we can push data out. We may be able to extract it.
Good.
The other thing I wanted to ask, we talk about James McClinton here is our new Continuum Care Housing Resources Director, someone who really is going to figure out how to do landlord engagement
Good.
and dig into housing. And we're working on marketing material. literally a packet, a landlord incentive packet that he can go around and other folks and say, this is what our housing is like. What kind of education materials can you all provide us that sort of just gently mention fair housing and the law? Is that all on a website we could print? That kind of thing I would also be interested in knowing, so that we can also inform them in a nice way that this is the law. And these are the rights that you have.
Now, one of the things in Office of Public Housing, we share annually a landlord's fair. So when I hear you say you want to educate the landlords, that is definitely what you want to do. So in doing that, I'll give whomever that said they were planning that my card, so that we can make sure that we're at the table. But also, you're going to need the Housing Authority, because they're the ones, again, administering the program. And so all of these fallacies, all of these misconceptions, all the things that are not accurate, that the landlords are now listening to, quite possibly, that's your opportunity to get them in a room and say, this is what the facts of the matter. And until that occurs, we will still be sitting here in these rooms 2 and 3 years down the road. I don't understand why we can't do tax credits. I'm listening at this. You can't do them in the city limits, or I just don't get that. Again, that becomes your what? It's political. So those are the things that you're going to have to make sure that you do, and then we can do our part in that we're funding, but there's things that you all are going to have to do. And the young lady here said, getting together the coalitions. We've got to stop working in a vacuum. How many nonprofits are here? Do you all know each other? And you work together? Okay. So, and then I agree. So, and then I'm going to ask the question. So, if we've done all of these things, what is the holdup? Because, I mean, this is my first time coming to a meeting. I'm sitting and I'm listening intently. And so I don't have all the details. And while I'm asking the questions, I don't know. And it sounds like you've got a success story. So we share that. This is City View. Did you say City? City Square? And it's working. So do we get that out there? It's working, so that dispels the myths.
Well, and I'm sure, have y'all watched the Frontline? I got about 40 minutes.
When you get through talking, I'm going to play this now.
So the challenge is in our continuum of care and in our area, Dallas and Collin County, we have lost about 280 units of project-based voucher with a commitment to homeless preference, because we may do an RFP for 50 units or 100 units, and we can only use 5 of them because the landlords they've got other monies that they can take, fair market folks, without voucher, without added expenses for inspections, et cetera, or waiting for inspections and all that. And we have also, those landlords we had, sell the property, the multifamily property is flipping. Get a new buyer comes in there, and through attrition, get rid of anyone who is within any type of subsidy, not just HCV vouchers, could be continuing care money, leasing agreements, master leases, rental assistance. We spend more time rehousing people that already housing, let alone the people who are in our shelters. And so it's a market issue. We finally, and I can say this because I don't work for City Hall, we thought, well, if I've got 100 units of housing under a continuum of care rule, rather than to put 100 people in one unit, we're going to get 3 or 4 different landlords together. That's dispersion is good, enough collection so you have friends and community. And because it's a master lease, requires city council stamp, the council member who district that represents one of those 4 says, not in my backyard, I won't let you sign that contract. And this is where I'm like, is there something legal there? Because it's still a city council person saying just because it just seems like it's right on the edge of discrimination, right on the edge. Just forget about race. It could be just poverty.
Is there a lawyer in here? I invited like 4 lawyers.
I just want from the HUD rule, because this was going to be HUD money doing something under COC to try and do. I just need the city council to approve the contract that says I'm going to have a case manager come and serve 25 people in your unit, and that council member says, nope, I will not approve it. Moves it off a consent agenda, delays the vote, and it dies. Right. And now I've lost 2 willing landlords.
Have any of y'all followed the scoring process for a LIHTC property in the last 5 years in Dallas County? Okay. All right. Well, just go and look at the process. I mean, I have some very smart people that work for us, and we have 1,600 units of LIHTC where LIHTC played a part, or home money played a part, or where we did capital stacking to build it using private foundation money along with tax credits and loans from Chase and Bank America. We've been successful, but in the last 5 years, if you try to score a LIHTC property in this county within the city limits of Dallas, you will run into problems from fair housing, for one thing. And then when you go to the suburbs where you could score higher, you can't get the points from the political leaders in that county or the city council or the property owners. You just can't get the points to make that thing score well enough to land even 4% credits at the state level.
What are they using in the city that there's too many, or I mean, I'm not really listening.
They're just, it's various, but it comes down to, the bottom line is, it will make our property values go down if you bring those people to our neighborhood.
Again, it's a lot of times it's some misconceptions, but where fair housing comes in is when it's being concentrated in an area where there's already a lot of
And that's our
high
challenge
poverty.
in Dallas. If we go to build it in a good spot in Dallas, then we can't score because we're concentrating poverty in an area where it's already got too much poverty.
Right.
You see? That's why our 15-story building is the last project of its kind done in the last 7 years in Dallas County. Now, we do have a very creative developer in the Hamiltons and their property company, and they have made like the Lorenzo Hotel and High Point Seniors Development over in South Oak Cliff. We've made some of that stuff work, but it hasn't been because we were able to score enough money in the LIHTC process. It's just because we had a developer and a bank and others that would work with us on that. So, okay.
All right, and I'm going to see if I can get this video to play. It's only 6 minutes, so this is very enlightening. Can you hear it?
Why can't the city do anything about it? David Schechter found out in tonight's Verified Road Trip.
So I just finished eating lunch, and I'm walking through the parking lot, and this car pulls up.
So I let my window down, and I shouted out, "Hey, Verify!"
This lady starts telling me about a homeless encampment that's 2 blocks from her house, where dozens of people live under a bridge.
There's drugs, it's an eyesore, it's trash.
And she wants us to verify
Why the city of Dallas can't close the homeless encampment in my neighborhood.
Y'all hear?
My name is David Schechter. I'm a veteran reporter, and now I work for you. I'm taking real people out on the road to get their questions answered, and you're coming along for the ride. This is Verify Road Trip. A year ago in Dallas, they shut down a tent city of about 240 people. Many of those people scattered, and some ended up 2 blocks from where Felicia Burns lives. Hi, Felicia. How are you?
I live in the South Boulevard, Park Row Historical District.
Felicia drives past here every day, but she's never been inside. So I'm taking her to see it for herself.
This is America. This is Dallas. Big D. And people have to resort to living like this. That's really, really sad. But to be right up in it, smelling it, feeling it, it was different.
This guy, Antonio Howard, comes up to us, and he's telling us he got out of prison 6 months ago. He's been living under the bridge for 40 days.
Did you say you want to live in the tent until you get yourself together, or if someone could provide housing for you, would you rather an apartment or housing?
Right now, I'm where I was. I don't like being homeless, but right now, it's convenient for me. It's temporary.
Yeah, it's like.
He's okay with living in a tent. I can't wrap my head around that.
The gist of this story.
And then I'm not gonna accept that.
Was that it changed the woman's mind when she realized just the whole process.
And she was able to kind of see the story and understand the frustration. She met someone who had a voucher and couldn't turn it in anywhere and said, wait a minute, you mean it's all because of there was a lot of other systemic things going on in our community, and it wasn't just because we were just letting homeless people live under a bridge in her neighborhood. And she finally got the larger picture, which frustrates most of us in this room, the role that the housing market is playing. And for me, I think I can say that there is absolutely this subtle, non-specific racism that is a part of this. And so that was part of the reason of that Mr. Holman has done the work to bring folks in and to let us understand what our rights are, help us strategize and how we're going to resolve this issue. Are there other folks that have a comment? Can you turn that? Yeah, turn it off. Hit the double bar there. Yeah. Are there any other comments where you have? Go ahead. Where's the moving mic? I let it go. Thank you. We got lots of mics. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Osi Kazee with State Representative Tony Rose's office, and we represent District 110. I was formerly with Representative Eric Johnson's office, who represents District 100, which does encompass West Dallas. I am from West Dallas. Many of you may not be aware that Representative Johnson's bill on homelessness and housing, affordable housing, has been killed once this week, and it's up again today. And I called just before coming in and said that it will probably be killed. There's a collective effort by the Tea Party to kill, of course, anything to do with government, and especially housing for poor people, and especially food and subsidies for poor people. All of what you've said is good. Every single idea is valid, but it does not matter if you have 100 non-sensitive people in your government to 50. They don't need your vote. And unless your elected officials represent you and what you value, you're fighting an uphill battle on every single issue. So it comes down to this, people. You've got to vote. You've got to get people who think like you to vote like you for the candidates who support homeless, affordable housing, who don't mind having people that may look different than themselves living next to them. I had a confrontation, I got chewed out about it. I just had this confrontation with a Tea Party member's district director yesterday. And I said, they voted down something for free food not free food, but just the small credit item that Representative Giddings put before the House, and they killed it. And when I went to a lunch, I had cried all morning about it, because when she pulled out that these kids may be short on funds and get to the cash register, they don't have enough money in their account, and the food is thrown in the trash in front of them. And they're given a carton of milk and a package of cheese or crackers. Now, if this doesn't pull at your heartstrings, you're talking about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10-year-olds who have to see this, and all you're asking them to do, these aren't kids who have already been appropriated free lunches. These are kids whose parents come and put money on the books and say, okay, feed my kid for a week. And so maybe they're in the next week and they've missed getting money in their account, and they don't give them credit. So Representative Giddings' bill was to give these kids some credit and let the school districts decide how they're going to collect the money from the parents. It was killed. And so I said to her, just go see Representative Giddings' bill. To hear her plea, because there is a special place in hell for people who do things to children. And if you can sit there as an elected official, You can be conservative all you want, but when you take food out of a child's mouth, or you neglect to provide the best housing or educational systems that you can provide, you shouldn't be an elected official because your heart isn't in the right place. You know what she said to me? We have 2,000 people who think like my boss, and that's who went and voted. You go get your people to vote. And I said to her,
That's despicable.
you have just challenged me. And from this day forward, I will be working to get your boss unelected. Well, of course, she went out, she called her boss, and he went to the floor and told my boss and said he was going to kill the bill again because I made his director cry. And I said, well, I didn't get a chance to tell my boss because she was so busy fussing at me on the phone. But I'm like, good if she cried, because that means she at least had a heart on some level, or maybe she went and heard Representative Giddings' plea. So what I'm saying to you guys, all of this is good, and I'm so glad I'm here to hear this. But of course, I live it every day because I get calls every single day about needing help at my church. People come to me all the time saying, help me find a house, a place to live. A single mother at my church last Sunday with 2 children being evicted because she lost her job, she doesn't have transportation. In the public housing in West Dallas, a young man with epilepsy who's lived in West Dallas all of his life. He's 60-something years old. They're trying to evict him out of the West Dallas projects because he's been living in a 2-bedroom. He had a roommate. The roommate died. They're moving him to, or trying to move him to Seagerville, an area he knows nothing about. He's been in West Dallas 60 years. He goes to Parkland on the bus. Those kinds of issues are real. And all I can say is we need to do more than just sit in the room and talk about these things. We need to vote. We need to get everybody we know to vote. That's where it matters. Thank you.
Hi, Justin Manor with Prism Health. We work a lot with clients, and having vouchers returned is nothing new. We've heard this over and over. Sometimes it's due to some of the myths. Other times, just a variety of reasons. But if I were a landlord and someone told me I have someone who has a backer who's going to guarantee payment every month at a certain time and it won't be late and it's guaranteed, to me that's a huge selling point, and I'm not sure why landlords aren't on board with that. Maybe I don't understand the whole voucher process, but if you could explain, I'm assuming it's not a tear book where you rip out a coupon every month and mail it in and they have to do it, but what does a landlord actually have to do with someone who has a voucher versus just someone who sends in a check?
On top of that, let me just add this. I had the same discussion with a person, and she said, I don't want to live in a neighborhood where they're accepting affordable housing. I don't want to live in a neighborhood where they have people with vouchers, because the myth, my property value will go down. So if you own the apartment complex with 15 stories, has the property value around you gone down?
One of the things from a data perspective that just somebody write this down on my staff is, and I've asked Dr. Daniel, who's going to be one of the co-chairs on the homeless prevention partnership, and she's been feeding me eviction data, and I'd like to get a spreadsheet that kind of, if I can detail how many of those evictions actually are people with subsidies, because I'm telling you the majority of evictions are people without subsidies. In other words, again, to use data to show that the guarantee is there and the likelihood for eviction. So I need to do some more of that. I know that anecdotally I'm probably 94%. We run about a 94% housing stability rate in all of our world, but that still doesn't take away, that doesn't matter. That 4% keeps is a heavy.
We got one program that does 240 beds at PSH on 7 properties, and their turnover rate for people that are just paying market is 2 or 3 times higher than mine.
Yeah.
Than my PSH.
Okay, so we need to get some of that data, James, and figure that out and put that in our packet for incentives.
I'm going to attempt.
Why wouldn't they?
Well, I can't necessarily speak for a landlord, but the program used to provide damage claims. that may be the case, and years ago that was removed from the program. Not only could you lease, first of all, when a person is issued a voucher, that says, I'm going to pay their subsidy. That does not say what type of leaser they'll be or tenant they're going to be. We don't get into that at all. That's left up to the, when I say we, the housing authority doesn't. We only fund it. But years ago, there used to be a portion of that program which was damage claims, which was excellent. So this is like double security. I'm going to get my money, and if something happens to my unit, that's going to be repaired as well. That is no longer the case. So then when you, landlord, opts to be a part of the program, they're taking on, well, my rent is going to be paid. And I would think that's fantastic because we've got some pretty decent rents as well. And it's, you know for certain that's going to be in your bank account every month. So I don't think I can necessarily answer it other than what's been said to me. There is now the market in Dallas is such that it is no longer feasible. The competition for just non-voucher, it's just not the thing to do right now because the market is great. And so I think the conversation that needs to be had is how then, with this being in place, can we come up with some other means or ways to make the voucher program work? Because there's definitely a need. The waiting list is what, 10 years or something like that? And we know homelessness, you've got all of this. So I don't maybe that didn't answer your question, but that's the only one I can give you. What about inspections? What about inspection?
That would be another layer that has to happen that the landlord may.
Can I get in here? I just got my apartment a month and a half ago.
Uh-huh.
It takes 3 days or 4 days for the inspection process, and then the paperwork get turned in. It's about 4 or 5 sheets of paper.
Okay.
So it's not like it's this big long 20-day, 30-day process.
At some
It's
point-
not. That's incorrect. That's another misconception.
I think at some time, maybe late last year, there may have been a problem with the inspection. There was a backlog. We were advised of that, and we had some conversation, and then we were assured that that had been rectified. And so based on what you're saying, the timing of inspection is no longer a problem. So, yes, ma'am. I can't hear you.
And I was wondering, what is the difference between a regular Section 8 voucher and a Walker voucher? Because I was just awarded a Walker voucher a couple of months ago, and it's about to expire because I was running around to different houses and stuff. And the same thing happened to me last Friday. I went and got my bank statements and all that stuff, and then when I got there, the lady said, well, we don't take those. So, and I said, when they gave it to me, they said it was supposed to be different. It's supposed to be easier or whatever than a regular voucher, but I'm having the same problems. And this is my first time on the program, so I'm new to it, so I don't know the rules and everything.
I just only know enough about Walker to make me dangerous, and that was a litigation because what was impaction of neighborhood. They wanted to deconcentrate. And I can't answer your question because I don't want to steer you wrong. I want to refer you back to the housing authority. The only thing that it could possibly be, maybe, where's the newspaper? Don't write this. No. It could be that they have to be used in certain areas, and I don't know that. I don't know that to be certain. Is that what they said?
It's hard too because you have to stick with what the zip codes are.
Okay, so if there's certain areas,
if
it's certain areas, based on what I've been hearing here, think about what, now I don't know, but based on what I've been hearing, you're going outside of the city. And what am I hearing you all say? When you get outside of the city, they not what? Wanting to accept it. So it's an issue that we're going to need to address.
The Walker vouchers come from a lawsuit that was filed many years ago. I believe the lady's name was Sarah Walker. I may have the first name incorrect. But it was within Dallas, and then the vouchers resulted from a settlement of that lawsuit. And so there may be some restrictions in terms of where it can be used within the city limits of Dallas. That's the only thing I can think of, but I'm not sure.
Usually with the Walker vouchers, there's some additional mobility counseling that comes with helping to assist you in finding locations.
And I see people like Gavis. I called there like several times before I said, I'm in school, so I don't have a lot of time to school. Just went down for me, so I just began to start looking in, and I called, and they never returned my call. So they never. Okay, I'm with the City of Dallas Office of Fair Housing, so I'll get with you after
Great.
this, and we'll make that connection.
Great.
I also, while I have the microphone, I wanted to say that in 2015, HUD issued a new rule, and that was on affirmatively furthering fair housing. And as a part of that new rule, it established a process by which entitlement jurisdictions that receive HUD funds have to conduct an assessment of fair housing. Some of you may remember back in the day we did an analysis of impediments. And in many cases, it did not have the force to really make changes within communities. But with this assessment of fair housing, we're required to look at HUD-provided data that indicates problems and issues related to not only just segregation, poverty, issues related to low income and people with disabilities, but we're also looking at issues related to housing and lack of housing opportunities, lack of economic opportunities, and so forth. So the two people that are sitting next with me are from the University of Texas at Arlington, Dr. Steve Mattingly here, and Miriam Ogufe. They are in charge of the study that we're doing this year called an assessment of fair housing. And starting in the month of July, we'll be having public meetings in each city council district to get information on what are the issues that are affecting you. There'll be meetings similar to this meetings where we hear about some of the issues, but not only that, the meetings that we're having in the communities, Miriam is meeting with different focus groups. And so I see this as, similar to what we would do in a focus group to get your input on what problems exist, and then further down the line, what are some of the solutions. So they're here today to listen, but to also establish some contacts so that we can include this type of information as a part of the study that will go to HUD. And the way this works is when we do the study, we have to look at all the data, collect the information that we get from the public interaction and feedback. We have to come up with solutions. And then HUD has to approve the plan. Once we turn it in, they have 60 days to say yay or nay, we've accomplished what we're supposed to accomplish. That information feeds into our consolidated plan process. The city has to do a new consolidated plan, and it's due in 2018. So the information that we get from the AFH will roll into the consolidated plan, and that's why it's so important, because it will impact how we allocate the $30 million or whatever we get from HUD. It will have an impact on how that money is allocated. So your voice is very important. Let me also say that we're the Fair Housing Enforcement Agency for the City of Dallas. We work very closely with HUD. They provide the funding for our office. And so if you have issues or concerns within the City of Dallas, we're here in City Hall on the first floor. Barksdale Higgins, would you stand up, Barksdale? He's our compliance manager. Barksdale works not only on enforcing, making sure that the laws are enforced, but we also refer people to other agencies if it's something that we cannot handle. I'll be happy to work with you to assist you in getting into contact with a navigator that can help you find housing.
That's
okay?
good. Yeah, those housing navigators are critical, because when you're poor and you're on an hourly job, you can't not show up to work. And so we're in the process of hiring one as well within MDHA to just help even more to expand that. So while I do have the city people here, because I can ask this, so I would like to understand in writing how it is a council member has the power to vote down a legitimate contract with the vineyards? That'll give you something to look up. I just want to understand, because I know the studies, the research, impediments. I've written consolidated action plans and 5-year plans in my career. I know what you're doing. I don't want, we write it all out and it never has any teeth. A neighborhood association shows up, whatever, the vote goes down and we're done. I want to know what is the authority that a councilman can say, I will not allow this even to come to a vote. And there, ergo, we have housing that goes unused that I desperately need, because now I have to start from square one again and go find more apartments, a landlord. I want to understand. We're going to try to change the rule so that we can do tenant-based rental assistance as opposed to project or sponsor-based, so that we never have to go to city council and ask the question. So we're trying to change the rule and using every tool we have, but I still want to understand. It doesn't ever seem to all these laws and rules and fair housing never seem to make the cut that a council member goes, man, I don't ever want to, jeopardize $30 million by doing something against. That's what I would like to know. And not today, but in your study.
It's real simple. It's politics. It's just.
But where's the asterisk on the bottom of the fair housing rule that says, oh, unless the neighborhood association don't like it, this doesn't matter. And I'm not being flippant. I am from this world of public policy, and I'm just saying, it's not, I wouldn't say flagrant abuse of or whatever, but it's still, yeah, you want the right elected officials and all that, but even the best, even strong African American folks representing poor areas vote down projects for affordable housing, and I know that, and I've seen it, not just Dallas and other communities. So I'm just trying to understand.
You have residents in the area go to their council member, go to the town hall meetings and say, do not let that housing, we have enough.
Yeah, but I get that. I want to know the law that gives them to go, well, unless they don't want it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just want, that's our work. That's your work.
That's not based
our
on law.
work.
Okay, can I say something, folks?
We're about,
Since I'm the
we're out
moderator.
of time.
Since I'm the moderator, I want to say something. Okay.
You have a question, right?
And I want to get back to you all. Do you see this right here? This is what Mark Vesey did to get these voter ID laws overturned. I need an attorney, because I believe in what they call, First Amendment, Constitution. You're violating my right to life. I can't get an apartment because you're telling me you're turning down my rent voucher because you just turned it down because you don't have to take it. I think this is a constitutional issue, okay? It has some constitutional ramifications, and I need an attorney that'll sit here and counsel me and say, well, what do you think? Because you have to attack this problem from different angles. And when people see, I'm not through. And when people see lawsuit coming, it kind of gets their attention, okay? We don't necessarily want to have to push it down their throat, but if you're violating my constitutional rights, you're going to have to deal with this, okay? And this is what had to happen to get these arbitrary and capricious, I'm a computer guy, I'm not a Latin guy, voter ID requirements overturned. Okay, so I need an attorney. So anybody got an attorney, can you please contact me? I tried to talk to 4 and none of them called me back. Okay?
We need to say this. There's a lawsuit that's been filed by communities against the state of Texas. There is a lawsuit that has been filed by Inclusive Communities Project against the state of Texas, who passed a law which basically said that local jurisdictions could not establish non-discrimination laws that would protect voucher holders. So that has been filed, that lawsuit has been filed in federal court.
Okay. Now, are we on a strict timetable, or we're on a strict timetable? So that means we got 2 minutes. So anybody else who wants to talk, they need to talk in 30 seconds. Okay.
Well, my question was basically about the Supreme Court and all of that, is that the city ordinance that was going to be passed was voted down. And I noticed that some of the flowers that were handed out that Minnesota passed a city ordinance but this is a legal issue, and I'm not a lawyer. So, and the mayor supposedly quoted a state law when it was voted down, the ordinance to force properties to take the voucher. I understand that in the Northwest, the 5-state area up there, that anytime they rezone a property for multifamily units and whatnot, it is put in the rezoning agreement that they have to take a certain percentage of low-income housing. However, I understand you cannot do that in the state of Texas because this is a property rights state. And so here's my question, and we need a lawyer. How do we get this changed so that this type of discrimination does not continue? And so that each state doesn't have the right to vote their own laws in place, which basically supports discrimination. So I don't know how to do it. I'm not a lawyer, but we need to get a law in place like they have up in the Northwest, Montana, Washington, Portland, Oregon, where they do the best job of the whole United States, from what I understand, of mixing low-income people and upper-income people into the same properties. Here's the bottom line. We need to learn how to live together. That is black, white, rich, poor, Protestant, Catholic, straight, gay. All of us need to learn how to live together. And when we start sectioning people off, that is not good for any of us. Okay, and so we need to change this, and I don't know how to do it. Like I've said 10 times in this little speech I've given, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how to do it.
Thank you. Well said.
Okay, I just had a quick comment. I don't know if it's going to solve all the problems, but for landlords, they are usually small businessmen. You need to appeal to them as small businessmen, and the voucher programs really do have a lot to offer a landlord. You just need to make them aware of it, so that's education. But
yes,
appeal to them as businessmen because the inventory's there.
Now, we got to run in a minute. Now, I'm intending on following this up in 4 months, 3 months, 4 months. Siobhan, you have any suggestions? 4 months, 3 months. 3 months. We're going to have another session in here devoted to what have we accomplished since this session. And I want you guys to do your homework. So I want you to look at this. I'm going to see if I can get this thing to work again. I want you to copy this thing from Verify so you can see, see right there? Verify, homeless camps, okay? And then you got to go to Frontline. Let's see where's Frontline here. At the very bottom. Frontline, just past Tuesday, okay? So that way you can get ammunition to shoot at these people down who are telling you that what you're not doing is not right. So you got Frontline, this past Tuesday. That's not too hard to get. Now, this Verify is a little more difficult because it's from several weeks back. Let's see if I can get this. Verify, there it is. Can you see it now? Homeless camps. I just disappeared. Come here. I'm gonna hold there. Okay. All right, so that's okay. Siobhan's saying we're on we're 3 minutes over. So hey, we're not the worst ones out there. We might not be the best, but we're not the worst. So I want to thank everybody for coming. And in 3 months, we're going to do this again. So hopefully we can get DHA here and some other people and an attorney to try and get some advice on how we're going to move forward. All right, thank you all for coming, and see you in 3 months.
This is William, hopefully your favorite videographer from Two Hats Publishing. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please leave comments below, or like, follow, or subscribe to us and get notices of all our videos. We love it, even when you call.